Good morning, folks. The real Captain Kirk here, live from Weather Trends 360 studio here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It is officially December. We have the Christmas tree up in the office, and any luck, since we've been really good here at Weather Trends this year, Santa will pay us a visit in our Captain Kirk's chair here. The good news about December means that the hurricane season is officially over, an active one indeed. We had 16 systems, 15 of those got names, 8 hurricanes, 2 major hurricanes, and an accumulated cyclone energy index of all these systems of 129. All of those were well above average, except for the numbers of major hurricanes was slightly below average, but unfortunately both of those made landfall. Kudos to Team Weather Trends 360 here. The folks actually put out an awesome year-ahead forecast that said the major threats were going to be the Panhandle of Florida and the South Carolina-North Carolina border, and that's exactly where the 2 major hurricanes hit, Florence and Michael. Forecast was on the high side of everybody's numbers, preseason, year ahead, 15 systems, and that's exactly what happened. So again, glad this one is in the history books. Looking at the snow cover here this morning, 3 December, 43.7% of us have snow on the ground. That is pretty epic. Normal's only about 25%, and that's the most in a couple decades. This time last year, only about 9.7% of us had snow on the ground, which was the least in decades. But we went on to have an above-average winter season last year for the U.S. overall. Northeast was very snowy, counting into the spring. So again, this doesn't necessarily tell you how the winter will shake out, or even how Christmas morning will shake out. The last 2 Christmas, we've had above-average snow cover across the U.S. 49% of us last year, almost half the country, had snow cover on the ground Christmas morning. Average is only about 40%. A little bit of risk to go for 3 in a row here, certainly possible. But again, a little bit of risk in terms of some of this will erode with a warmer pattern setting up here for the middle of next week. Looking at this week overall, again, most of the country is very cold. This is the coldest in 5 years nationally, 10th coldest in 30 years. The only milder spots in terms of average temperatures are the Northwest and South Florida. Tale of 2 halves of the country here, very, very dry for the northern tier and very wet and moist for the southern half. 300% above average rainfall there for Texas. That precip in Oklahoma, northern Little Rock, Kansas, Missouri, that is actually snow. So again, some of that will be snow. So it'll be the snowiest in 5 years for this week on a national scale, and a little bit wetter than last year. Looking at next week, again, we get into an MJO cycle pulse, if you will, that goes across the hemisphere here and brings a milder trend. This is about a week, maybe a week to 9 days of milder weather. In spots across the U.S. It's not blowtorch hot by any means, but it would make it the warmest mid-December in 3 years, 13th warmest of the past 30 years. Wettest in 10, and get back to a very stormy pattern here with this pulse of second wettest in 30 years, and below average snowfall probably next week, lowest in 4 years, below average. So again, don't panic here. This is just if you like cold and snow, the pattern's going to shift here as we get closer to the Christmas holiday. Looking at the modeled snowfall here for the next 2 weeks, take this with a little bit of grain of salt. It's good for giving you a general idea of magnitude and general location. We have a system moving out of the Rockies this week into the Kansas, northern Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, because we're kind of a deeper south system here. And then it's going to jump so a good 8 to 12 plus inches, certainly likely in those areas. May not be quite as high as that purple band there. It jumps to the mid-Atlantic. Then it gets iffy here. The models have been showing a bigger snowstorm for the D.C., Philly, Eastern PA, New York, coastal New England, if you will, rather than interior New England this weekend. Euro's been waffling. GFS has been waffling on this event. Took it out. Euro brought it back in. So if you're in the D.C., Philly, Eastern PA, New Jersey, New York area, weekend's worth watching. This is another kind of that November 16th type storm where models said nothing, and then 2 days out we have the biggest November blizzard in history. So it's not going to be a huge blizzard, but something to watch here as we get toward the weekend. Next week, with the milder trends, the snow will be pretty much limited to the Rockies and the Sierras of California. If you think it's been a cold, snowy, wet fall here this year, it actually has been. Since September 22nd, it's been the snowiest in 13 years for the U.S. overall, coldest in 16 years, wettest in 30 years. So it's been a pretty epically cold and stormy fall season to date. Getting into this Hanukkah week here, obviously it's on the cold side for the nation as a whole. We're going to get into that little bit of a, like I said, MJO cycle that generally brings a little milder weather. Not a blowtorch pattern, but certainly milder than average. But that kind of erodes, and then as we get into the Christmas week, we start to see pulses of the colder cycle. So how quickly that sets up, but it looks like it's going to happen the week of Christmas, which is midweek, going into New Year's. May get into a little milder period there right for a few days, beginning of January, And then we think the bottom falls out and falls out for January 8th all the way through the February, early March timeframe, with the coldest, snowiest winter in 5 years, wettest in 3 years. We've talked about that for a year now, so watch some of the other videos on the winter outlook. But epic polar vortex, there's no doubt about it, almost a certainty of how cold and snowy this winter will be. So again, sign of things to come. With that, folks, we only have 22 days until Christmas. It's amazing how things warp speed here. Took the Mrs. Captain Kirk and the little Angelina Kirk to their favorite thing is Christmas trees, so we headed down to Longwood Gardens to see the spectacular display, and so we'll end here with all the pretty trees. So with that, folks, have a great week, and we'll be here this time next week.